So I'm taping this late Tuesday afternoon. There's been some Celtics news, and it seems like Al Horford's not coming back. That seems to be the word on the street. He opted out of his contract. I think the Celtics thought that they're going to re-sign him for a 3 or 4 year deal for a little less money that would help them out with the cap. And now it looks like he's leaving. I don't know where he's going. By the time you hear this, the team might have emerged. But this Celtics season, which started out so promisingly 8 months ago, with the over-under of 59.5 wins in Vegas, I thought they were going to win 67. It seemed like they were a heavy contender. And not just for the season, but for, the next 10 years. They would have been the team, like, if I could have any assets from any team, I'd pick Boston. And now, less than a year later, you would take New Orleans in that argument. And the Celtics are looking at Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Gordon Hayward, some non-lottery picks, and the Memphis pick, and and some cap space. So if Al Horford leaves, holy mackerel. I was actually talking myself into Al Horford could stay. Maybe there's a way we could figure out some crazy Chris Paul trade or Mike Conley, and all of a sudden, Toronto, Kawhi goes to the Clippers, the Sixers fall apart. Milwaukee's still not ready. Maybe we could sneak in there. And now it's like, wow, should we just rebuild? So I don't know what to tell you. We're going to be talking basketball with Hench a little bit later. Right now, Brian Curtis. Brian Curtis is here, one of the co-hosts of The Press Box, which we have expanded to 2 times a week, talking about all the media stuff that's going on each week. Turns out you have enough topics for 2 shows a week. We were worried.
Yeah.
I wasn't worried. You were worried.
How do you just do all these podcasts, though?
You're good at it.
I know, but I know it's a very first world problem. It's a lot of talking.
It's a lot of talking.
It's a lot of talking. You finish one, you're like, okay, I'm back. I gotta get another one.
More topics.
You gotta find an overworked Twitter joke for Thursday.
The thing you realize is that shit keeps happening.
It does.
Like just your stuff concentrates on the media, but we're gonna have the debates for the next 18 months, and the media business just in general is both better and worse in a lot of ways.
At the same time.
Like the Sports Illustrated thing that happened, which I know you're covering on the Press Box, but they got sold, and now it looks like they've been sold again. And but that's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about it is getting very close to free agency period 2019 for the NBA.
Yeah.
And it struck me that this whole decade now, we have now a full decade. It's time to reflect on some things that happened in the decade. The process of being an NBA fan and of covering the league and how we consume it and what people want has changed as dramatically as anything I can remember. From 2010, where the decision was kind of the Neil Armstrong of this whole thing. I don't even really remember an NBA summer before the decision. Like, these guys were free agents in 2007. We had the Duncan McGrady summer in 2000, and it's not like this hadn't happened before.
That was big. The Shaq summer to the Lakers.
Yeah, we've had these, but 2010 was when it shifted, where I remember writing multiple columns even before he decided, and everybody was just kind of waiting. And then when it happened, we got to experience it in Twitter in real time. Dan Gilbert sends the letter out, and all of a sudden it was this kind of 3-day event that we dissected. Now we're here in 2019. Is this better or worse?
It's more content. It's probably better for a website like The Ringer.
Well, that's for sure. That I will concede.
Yeah, it gives us tons of stuff to cover. I just think everything comes out of that moment, the decision. And it's so interesting to read now, to think about it.
Yeah.
Because it was LeBron and Jim Gray and Mav Carter proving or figuring out the idea that summer free agency in the NBA could be content in a way.
Yeah.
That it was going to be, and that it could be just as big as almost any of the games that were played. That it could survive on its own. That was, they declared that essentially by doing a TV special.
Well, and then we had Wade and Bosch were both getting filmed by crews at the time, thinking about doing their own documentaries. And it does feel like that was the first summer when players looked at themselves as content.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Shaq was doing stuff. Like, Shaq was rapping and he was in movies. But
that was a very old media.
Kobe was doing the same. We had guys doing it. This was different. This was like, not only do I do basketball, but I can also be interesting this way.
Also, I'm going to be the producer.
Yeah. I'm in charge.
It's my special.
It's my IP.
I think so many things come out of that summer. Free agency as content was one big thing.
Yeah.
Players kind of trying to take the means of production away from the old gatekeepers. Player empowerment at least in its NBA version has got to come out of that LeBron moment. Players saying, I'm going to go where I want. I'm going to say I'm going to go where I want, and I don't care what everybody's telling me to do.
Although he did care, as it turned out.
It did, but we can trace it back to that. He was the pioneer. He's the Neil Armstrong of saying, you know what? Just because this team drafted me, I want to go play in Miami. Just because it's my hometown. I don't want to play here anymore.
Well, but players had done that. I don't think players had done that. You know, we'd had players leave cities and go to new teams. This felt different, though. I agree with you that
it loosened up things because sports writerdom, and even after the decision, was like, you can't, how dare you do this? You can't do this.
I have one of those pieces.
You have one of those pieces. But it was like, I feel that everybody kind of got that out of their system in a way, and it was easier for people to leave after that.
See, I think the thing that's
Don't you think so?
I do. I think the thing that's gotten lost about the decision that still remains unfair is that he did it to Cleveland. Now Cleveland's won a title, and I think
it's easier now.
Our perception of the fan base, things are happy there. They got Baker Mayfield. Things are good. In 2010, it seemed kind of unnecessarily mean to me. And I still feel that way. It's this fan base that had just gotten kicked in the balls since 1964 in every sport. And this one guy they had who fell to earth, who had a chance to be the next Jordan, basically. And they rode it, and they came so close to winning a title 2 straight years with him. And then he's like, I'm out of here. I'm going to Miami. And that was like the adding insult to injury. It's like, I'm going to Miami because I get to live in Florida, and it's beautiful there.
But it was the TV special part of it that felt like a particular kick in the nuts?
Yes.
So if he
finding out on live TV that your girlfriend broke up with you when you've had all the baggage that the Cleveland fans had, it's still rough. I mean, but think about how crazy the response was. What was that Scott Rabb book?
Yeah, The Whore of Akron.
Yeah. Imagine that's not happening now in 2019.
I think he might want that one back.
I felt like he should have wanted that one back at the moment. It was a tough title.
What's our alternative plan for LeBron? If you think going on TV was a kick in the nuts, I'm trying to get in the insider time machine because I'm like, I got to reorient my brain. So was he called David Aldridge in 2000? Who's your call? Is in your mind, if he calls somebody and says, I'm going to Miami.
I think you only do that special if you know you're staying. Like if you really ultimately know you're staying, that's when you do it.
It's a feel good.
It's a feel good. Like, of course everybody was going to get mad. And I think he underestimated really what sports means to fans. And this is something like Durant and I have argued about on multiple podcasts. He's like, why do fans care what I do? It's my life. And I think sometimes the connection gets lost. But that's been one of the things that has been, I think as the decade has gone along, has been a little numbed. Because now we're just used to the movement. The movement makes sense now.
But I think LeBron loosened that up.
He did.
He was so spectacular.
LeBron was the enema that led to.
And now we're just, it just comes out easy now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There is a reading of the decision, though, that LeBron, a player, and his associates said, we're gonna do this special. We're gonna make ourselves into news in the offseason.
Yeah.
And all of us journalists looked at that and we got mad. But then our solution was that we're just going to put on the specials ourselves in the offseason. So part of it was that he, as you say, left Cleveland and went to Miami. The other part of it was, you don't get to do that. We get to we get to throw the offseason party. And we're happy with it if we throw the party. But there's something about you throwing the party that we don't like. I think that's somewhere in the subconscious.
You're on our territory.
I think that's somewhere in the psyche of this.
Yeah.
Because we're throwing a party now. You and I.
Daily party.
The Ringer. We threw one last year. We threw one the summer before.
No, I mean, this has been now, like to borrow the wrestling analogy, every year the ladder match, the ladders in the ladder match seem to be bigger ladders. And now these are 30-foot ladders we're jumping off of into these summers. The summer is now, guys are now moving in mid-June. You're not even allowed to allegedly talk to teams until July. We all know Kyrie Irving's going to Brooklyn already.
And it's the whole lead up. The Kyrie started advertising his summer in December, January. When was that? When he first started sort of making a lot of noises about that?
Yeah.
It's all a lead up. Remember, I wrote for you in 2014, summer 2014. I think I got the date right. A piece called the trade rumor era. We're at Grantland, and I said something is happening here where the summer is now more interesting than the actual NBA Finals.
You're right.
That was 2014.
And what was going on in 24? I guess LeBron. That was when LeBron flipped. Yeah.
And it was right before that happened. But I was like, I remember you and I talking about that. And we said, it's just like the media world has changed. That we care about this so much and so much more, weirdly, in some cases. This finals was actually pretty exciting, I think. I think people were pretty locked in.
Well, it had just unbelievable in-game storylines. Like Durant and Clay going down in back-to-back games was just one of those things happening would have been a top 10 most memorable finals moment, I think. But
for sure,
for both of them going on. I look at it as this decade has gone, if you're just looking at it from a standpoint of what did we not have in 2010 that we have now? I don't think Twitter was around, but people were still kind of figuring it out.
Barely.
It wasn't the same. And we also didn't really know who to follow. There was a whole world back then where reporters weren't allowed to tweet stuff. They had to like save it for the newspaper. We were still kind of in that whole era. And Mark Stein was really handicapped by that for a few years because he had to send stuff into the desk. Woj is at Yahoo just, putting stuff out. We didn't have Woj back then. Woj was this pretty angry guy at Yahoo who had kind of declared war at ESPN and wrote some really, really harsh pieces about LeBron James and was kind of the renegade pirate. Wouldn't be part of the worldwide leader. He's going to get his scoops his own way. And now, 9 years later, he's the biggest guy at the worldwide leader for rumors and stuff.
Yeah, and he was kind of doing a different thing at that time, if I remember correctly.
He was trying to write columns.
He was going to games.
Yeah.
He was talking to players after games. It was like he was really being kind of a recognizable, what we used to recognize like an NBA league writer.
Yeah.
Not just now where those guys moved into like, I'm just doing news. I'm just doing items. That's it.
Podcasts have changed. The podcast existed in 2010, but now it's like there's a bunch of basketball podcasts. A lot of people go on each other's podcasts. I feel like the media in general is a lot friendlier from a basketball standpoint.
Yes.
Personified by that media basketball game that had a lot of people in there, but it seems like it's not as much people trying to beat each other, and it's not as cutthroat, I don't feel like, as it was last decade.
NBA media.
Yeah.
And it's weird because NBA media in the last decade has become such a much better job in the old sports page hierarchy.
Yeah.
It was last among major sports, third. It was an easy third place, and maybe if you were in like a Southern paper, it was like fourth behind college football.
It's true. I mean, the concept of an NBA job being more valuable than an NFL job 15 years ago would have been nuts. Or
Dallas,
like more desirable.
It was fourth. I mean, it was a solid fourth. It may still be fourth, maybe third, but it was definitely fourth at the time. And the idea, so what you're saying is funny though, because so many more people started covering the NBA. It became a big beat, it became what you wanted to cover, but then it became nice. You figured it actually be the opposite way, that everybody would come in and then it would turn into like, Gangs in New York or something like that. But other than the
it's way too pleasant. I wish there was a lot more backbiting.
I always really respect that opinion because it is way too nice. It's way too. By the way, during the finals, like everybody's like the people of Canada and the people of Toronto. These are just some great people. Only on NBA Twitter do you just like, come on. And then of course they cheered Durant's injury. Everybody's like, oh no, what have we done?
Toronto has failed us.
Guess what? They have people that are like Yankee Red Sox fans in Toronto. Yeah. I can't believe that. Who have like temporary insanity for 10 seconds and cheer Durant's injury and then go, oh yeah, I feel bad about that.
Yeah, that's another outcome of this decade is the pander culture. Just these carefully constructed tweets to just that nobody is going to go against because you just seem like a dick, but they're also crafted in ways that you're just pandering.
Buckner.
I hate those.
I know we're not talking about baseball, but Bill Buckner was a Twitter pandering high watermark. It really was.
People
you
who
were
had
climbing up
columns,
on the mountain. I'm seizing the high ground.
People who had written columns like making fun of him, and then we're like, "Oh, he shouldn't have been defined by one play." It's like, you have this in your archives.
Yeah, it was a bit. how awful is this? It's the first sentence in his obituary. Would you think it was going to be paragraph 6?
Right.
I mean, I don't want
It's the most famous baseball play ever.
I don't wish Bill Buckner bad things, but that was a kind of a big play in baseball. It was a famous play. I remember watching as a kid. That was an indelible play. Anyway, yes, there is this thing in NBA Twitter where, you are, but it's weird. It's a nice off, isn't it?
It is.
Who can understand? A lot of times it's who can understand the players more.
It's not nice if you're talking one-on-one to people. Then the fucking knives are out.
They're
it's as petty as ever. It's just publicly.
They're as big an asshole as any other journalist.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's all nice on Twitter. That guy, what does he know?
Yeah, it's fucking around. He's in his so-and-so's pocket.
Yeah. I found this finals, and maybe you agree, maybe disagree, after the fact pieces in this finals were pretty incredible. Yeah. Like Ramona right after game 6 had all this. She was clearly like putting the notebook out, and she had, like Michael Thompson and Clay, did it pop, on the knee and all this stuff. And was it Draymond and, or was Kevin Durant calling Clay Thompson right after game 6? And then that one, Tim McMahon the other day on the Rockets. It just felt like all this stuff. It felt like everybody was prepping their postseason pieces.
That's been another trend that has happened over the course of this decade, is the people waiting and then dropping the belated, here's actually everything I know. And it's usually either after the season ends or after the player leaves. Because like
that's the now they tell us. That's what I call it, the now they tell us.
Yeah, and that happened last year with all the LeBron pieces. Remember?
And another
after
thing.
he left Cleveland.
And another thing.
And then this happened. But I know it's going to happen with Kyrie. He's going to leave, and somebody's going to write a piece, and there's going to be 10 stories in there, and people are like, oh my God. But it's not going to happen until they know he's not coming back. And the Celtics are like, all right, you can use this. Use that story. That's fine. Use that anecdote.
And let me give you 3 more while we're at it.
Yeah. In the kind of, I guess, last decade, but especially 2 decades ago, the newspaper people would just write about this stuff in the moment. I think part of the thing that's changed with the Twitter and the retweets and stuff like that is once stuff's out there, if it gets taken the wrong way, you become like Daenerys on the dragon, just like holding on for dear life as this thing you wrote is just getting like annihilated left and right. I think people are really careful now. Yeah. They don't want to be on the dragon falling off.
Nobody wants that.
No.
Nobody wants that.
It feels like we have more writers who have access to athletes and can find out stuff that aren't in the same cities as those athletes. And I think that's because of DM and text. And
that's a big change in the last decade. I don't feel that would have worked the same way.
Yeah, like Mark Stein, when he was covering, and I've talked about this with him on the podcast, he's covering the Mavericks and Nash and Dirk fall into his lap, right? He's the guy for those 2 guys. He's there with them all the time. He has the relationship with them. Nobody else was going to trump that. But now in 2019, somebody else could really easily have a relationship with those guys.
Absolutely.
Send them a DM. Hey, man, liked your piece. And I also feel...
And you see them like once a year when they come to your city, maybe. If you're living in San Francisco, LA, wherever you are.
Hey, buddy. And then I think the other part with that is I think people are a lot more hesitant to just annihilate somebody in a piece. Because the athlete's going to see it. And it's the old thing with the reporters who be like, oh, they don't, with the internet writers, their first wave, they don't come in the locker room. They don't have to face these guys. Now, in a weird way, everybody has to face these guys because they will fire back. If you read a piece about LeBron and you're crushing him, he could kind of fire back and unleash the LeBron hive on you, and now you're feeling the dragon flames a little bit.
KD might be the better example here. But
yeah, you're right.
But yeah, that's true. And I think that's kind of a funny change in the last decade because it seemed like everybody was going to be at home. Nobody would have any accountability.
Yeah.
I may have heard Dan Shaughnessy just rattling something off about this the other day. I can't remember. Somewhere on some show. Somewhere in local cable hell was still mad about this.
I love it. It's like being insulted by a waiter at Papagino's in Waltham. It's like, hey, the waiter in Papagino's in Waltham was talking about it. Like, I don't care.
Are we still talking about this?
Yeah.
But I think that was the argument in 2009, 2010. Everybody's going to be home blogging and there'll be no accountability.
Right. Everybody's just going to be mean.
But now the player gets a Twitter account and, there is accountability of a sort. Also, I feel it just like things turn toward reporting, and maybe that should be in air quotes, but there's became like I think if you'd looked at the sports media in 2009, 2010, you would have thought it's going to really swing toward sit home and write great shit.
Yeah.
But it actually swung another way. It swung toward insiderdom a little bit. It swung toward Zach Lowe kind of pieces.
Yeah.
It swung toward, and maybe that's just because those guys were so big and so good.
Well, I remember at Grantland figuring, as we had Zach right as he was really coming into his own, but the last piece for him was the connections. And, you know, we would just send him to All-Star Weekend and tell him not to write. Like, we just wanted him to meet as many people as possible. And now he's at the point where he can go to anybody, you know, and get whatever quote he needs. And that took a whole decade for him to be able to get there. But you read some of the stuff he wrote in the finals. I thought he did some really good stuff. And he's just like, yeah, I talked to Klay Thompson about this, and he said this. And that's the last piece. And that's the part where, you know, especially with younger people, and we have a lot of young people here. It's the people that could have talked to 3 people for a story, but they talked to 9. Or could have just talked to these 2 people and that's it. But instead they just said, I'm going to call these other 8, or I'm going to go up to these other 6 in the locker room. Those are always the ones that are going to have better stories, I think.
Absolutely.
But it's funny how many people don't do that.
It's also that we should probably say the insider became the biggest job in sports writing in the last 10 years. And that was different. I don't think we would have said that in summer 2010 in the same way. I don't think you would have said the NBA insider would be the most kind of like the vaunted job in the NBA. I think you would have said.
Well, it's funny with like how in baseball they hired Jeff Passan to basically be baseball Woj, and they were pretty transparent about it. They were like, we now want a baseball Woj. Like they were at the car dealership trying to, they were like, I'm really enjoying my Porsche. I would like another fast car.
What else you got?
What else do you have that has a lot of horsepower?
What else you got? Yeah.
We have a Jeff Passan. He's got some scoops. But
that's the template.
Yeah.
And I think that was created in the last decade. Or well, it was, you know, those guys, Peter Vesti's around for a long time. But that job became the big job in the last decade in sports writing. Like the job where you get the big ESPN deal or the big Yahoo deal.
Right.
Where you have your own show.
You have to be able to go on TV.
You have to be able to go on TV, but you're the guy. And that was, I think if we got in the time machine and went back to summer 2010, I don't think that would be the case. In the same way.
True. I think the multimedia aspect of these guys has been another thing that changed because they're getting a lot of reps, you know? Like I see somebody like Windhorst. Windhorst is good on TV.
He is.
And it took, you know, most of the decade for him to get there, but he's had a lot of TV reps and a lot of podcast reps, and now he just seems super comfortable. There's all these different ways to get reps now, especially on podcasts. I think podcasts have really helped a lot of people in that respect. But I would say my big takeaway, it's more fun now.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I'm nostalgic for, and look, I'm part of this too. Like I've done a bunch of podcasts with players. I'm a little nostalgic for the distance that used to exist between the media and players because I think that territory now is becoming more and more blurred. The access is almost too good now for people. And it's both too good, but it's not good enough. Somebody can get to Klay Thompson. They might not be able to use it, but they can at least, Klay Thompson might know who they are. Does that make sense? Like, there's not as much mystery to me as I think there used to be. Kawhi has mystery.
Oh yeah.
Kawhi's shut everybody out, and that's actually kind of fun. I wish there was more mystery, I guess, in general with the stars. Well, I feel like we know too much about all of them.
There's a lot of coziness and a lot of mystery, but they're more powerful now.
They are.
And the media is weaker than it was in those days, I think. I think it's fair to say. Comparable to the players, anyway. You know, because they have their own Twitter accounts, they have their own brands, they have their own thing, they make lots and lots more money. And so they need us less. So it almost feels like that if you detach or roasted them like you're talking about, they would just be like, all right, I'm done with you. I don't need you anymore.
All right, quick episode of the rereadables. Because I noticed I wrote this before the decision. The summer of 2010 quickly turned into a polarizing topic since it's I'm sorry. Let me do that again. Quick episode of the rereadables.
Oh.
I wrote this in 2008. The summer of 2010 quickly turned into a polarizing topic since it's 2 years away And some fans are rightly making the quote, can't we just concentrate on this season? And quote, how is this good for a professional sport that a team is throwing away 2 solid seasons for something that might happen? My counter, the NBA's off-court subplots in many ways have become just as fun as anything happening on the court. Because of the internet, sports radio, team blogs, better information guys, everything else, the whole trade draft free agent market has practically evolved into its own sport to follow. We love reading mock drafts, making up fake trades, arguing about GM mistakes, discussing the latest moves and everything else. That's become part of being a Hoops fan. The summer of 2010, parentheses, it sounds like a blockbuster movie, ties everything we love about that goofy underbelly into one neat package. And then I keep going. So I wrote that in 2008.
You were team blogs away from a perfect game.
It was there. That was the double off the wall. So for some reason, 2008, I think, might have been the actual starting point. And I think it was because that was when the LeBron to the Knicks stuff started. And that was the first time we were just going way in the future, like, hey, this might happen. And people were talking about it, and radio hosts were going, oh, cool. When I talk about this, people call and they want to be on my show. So really, this has been an 11-year odyssey. But I think it crystallized in 2010.
And you were excited. As a writer and
basketball, it seemed like I was excited right then.
As a writer and a basketball fan, because you love that. Because I think for you,
I still love it.
The season wasn't enough for you.
No,
you had more like capacity for basketball, and you figured that maybe fans would also have more capacity for basketball.
I don't know if I was right in 2008, but I think that's turned out to be right. But yeah. I'll tell you this though, I remember when I was on Countdown. I really wanted, and back in like 2013, when I had a lot of sway at that point, and I really thought we should have a daily show. Like we could do a daily NBA show. I think I sent like a mock thing for it, and like, here's what it would look like, half hour. You have all these NBA people. You should do it either in LA or New York, where you can get the whatevers. And their attitude was always, there's no way. It's not a 12-month sport. They would have it, and I'd be like, but you have NFL Live on off season. Like, yeah, but that's the NFL. Nobody follows the NBA like this. And I was like, I actually think I don't think you're right. I feel like the NBA is heading this way. But now you look 6 years later, I mean, I never expected what's happened to happen. It's a 365-day sport. And it's even in those 365 days, things are moving 4 times in the day. Like just today, we're taping this on a Tuesday. The Chris Paul story happened.
Yep.
The Kyrie ghosted the Celtics happened.
Yep.
And then Al Horford apparently might not come back to the Celtics.
Huge.
All of that happened in 3 hours. But people like it.
And Kyrie to Los Angeles, was that today? Was that tweet today? Kyrie's focusing on Los Angeles?
I pray that happens.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Kawhi.
No, Kawhi.
I'm sorry.
On the Clippers.
God, sorry, yes.
Kawhi
on the Clippers. That was also today. That was kind of a mini.
People knew that one.
But that was kind of a moment today.
Yeah.
My question for you is, did we the media create space in fans' brains for this stuff? Did we just convince people collectively, you should be interested in this? This is going to be great. This whole basketball season you didn't know existed will be really, really fun?
No. Here's my theory. Tell me if I'm right. I think it's a combination of phones and Twitter and just how we get entertainment value out of our phones. Where it's like people, you can be in Starbucks and you just look around, everybody's looking at their phones. Something happened? Hey, I wonder if anything happened. Something happened? I'm going to check again. Oh, I got a text. Oh, it's my mom. Something happened? Whoa. And that's just kind of what we do with our phones. And the NBA, like just the rumor mill fits into that perfectly, especially like a month like right now. I'm checking my phone constantly. I don't know what's going to happen. So you think of all the things that we've had, like Twitter, Slack, Instagram stories, and then these basketball players are in our lives all the time. We follow them on all these different platforms, and they're part of our day. So just, I feel like the technology has made it happen, not the media.
It was the league evolving. We're talking about the decision. Players evolving, and then technology evolving at the same time.
You agree with that thesis?
I think that's right. Yeah, and the media being there, ready and willing to dive in with them.
Well,
and
think
having
about
space to do it, because it's like, the fact that ESPN is in on the NBA during this period is big in this timeline. Because if they didn't have the NBA rights, if it was still the NBA on NBC
or Fox,
maybe ESPN isn't diving in with both feet in quite the same way. And maybe the whole thing still happens, but it's just a little more muted or something like that. Maybe we get like 70% of the NBA offseason. I don't know. I think ESPN being mixed up in it, though, is probably important.
And I also think basketball, I've talked about this a million times, but the basketball and hip hop cultures and all the personalities in them, the way they just collide constantly, like personified by Drake in Toronto in 2019. Like that's the apex of this, but
or the Nadir, but yes, one or the other,
or maybe both. But that's just kind of culture now, And I think hip hop is the dominant form of music we have, and basketball isn't the dominant rating sport, but I think it's become the day-to-day most kind of interesting, and the one that, and the players and all that stuff. So it just seems like everything's headed a certain way. I thought it was crazy that what are the Lakers going to do was like a major storyline during the finals.
Absolutely.
That part is weird to me, that people get distracted from like when the championship is being decided. Seems like the championship should always be the most important part of whatever we're doing. But not this time.
The power of the Lakers to just, as terrible and irrelevant as they've been, and we're sitting here in LA, to cut through constantly is amazing. How much Lakers content has there been this year? In a year the Lakers missed the playoffs.
I remember the first year I did Countdown, they would make us lead with the Lakers, and I would just like fucking fly off the handle. I was like, what the fuck? Like they're not even relevant. What are we doing? And it was just like, what if you flip that around and made the Lakers the A block?
Mm-hmm.
And it was always like, what's wrong with the Lakers? Is Kobe turning it around? All these like generic Laker topics.
How many of those have we read this year? How many what's wrong with the Lakers? And we've had all these moments.
Yeah.
I mean, Magic obviously quitting being the just most insane. But now they're back. By the way, they're back in the A block.
You talked about that in the press box when Stephen A had Magic on same day that piece went out that was not flattering to Magic.
No.
And then Stephen A basically, I guess, criticized the piece while also saying what a good reporter the guy was.
Yeah, it was he mocked it, I would say.
He mocked it, but also was telling us what a good reporter Baxter Holmes was, and I didn't really understand what was going on. And then Magic was mocking it, but was also had just called people a backstabber. I didn't know what the hell was going on. That was a really weird moment for ESPN, I felt like.
It really was. There is a scenario where you say, Magic, either going to talk to Baxter Holmes, who's trying to get a hold of you for this piece and would love to talk to you, or you can go on, or you can't go on count on with Stephen A and state your case and call Baxter wrong. You have to do one or the other. ESPN is calling you to talk to this story. But obviously there were two people calling him, and those are just two completely separate entities.
That felt like a story that happens this decade and not last decade.
No way. Yeah. I just can't imagine what the last decade version of that would be. I think that's the other thing is like Stephen A is probably his own category in this last 10 years.
Yeah, Stevie, you're right. He is, because he's beloved. In last decade, I felt like he basically got driven off of ESPN because so many people were against him.
I don't think we would have called Stephen A the most powerful person at ESPN in 2010.
No.
And now is there any question, for on-air talent that he is?
I always judge that stuff by, can so-and-so get away with this? And it seems like he can get away with the most right now.
He can get away with not confusing players, not knowing players' names on television.
I certainly was able to get away with stuff for a while, and then it kind of turned.
Also, the just public reaction to Stephen A, I just love it. It swung all over the place. We were kind of in we all kind of really love Stephen A. He's committed to the bit. He's all in. And then he kind of lights up Baxter a little bit and kind of a lot of mistakes, and everybody's kind of in the Magic thing, and everybody's kind of swinging the other way. It's like, wait, we don't like Stephen A as a society.
I feel like he's in. I think he's in.
You think he's still in?
I think he's in that, Mike and the Mad Dog in New York 12 years ago, where people just like them, and when they screw up, people get mad, but then they forgive them.
It's part of the charm.
He's just instead of New York, it's the entire nation.
Just like Woj did, he also created a new job, which is not only am I the opinion guy on TV, but I actually talk to a lot of players. I still have enough contacts in the NBA. Now, maybe they're like people like Magic, but I still am plugged into the NBA in a big way. So I'm kind of half opinion guy and half like conduit of information.
Right.
And I think that's, I mean, what would we have pointed at like that 10 years ago? I have no idea.
The other thing that's happened, and then we'll wrap it up, is I have a piece to be written about me, and I'm going to decide who writes it and where it's going to go. And I'm going to plan this out very carefully, like I'm Jake Gyllenhaal with a big movie coming out. That did not exist 10 years ago.
One of the strangest developments in my lifetime.
But you called it the celebrity journalismification of the NBA.
Yeah.
We just saw it with Rich Paul in Sports Illustrated recently.
The sports profile became the Hollywood profile.
Hey, Rich, we can get you the cover. Write this piece. And, they're going to mention a couple things, but it won't be that bad. And go for it.
And in a lot of cases, the question is now, can we get somebody who from the agency that represents the player, can we find a journalist who's also represented by that agency to maybe write the profile? Wouldn't that be interesting?
You're saying that happens?
I don't know. You never know about these things.
Jesus.
But what if they were interested in, you had a client from insert major agency and you had a journalist who was profiling the client from insert major agency?
Maybe team those two up?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that might be nice.
Wow.
But I think those machinations were pretty unknown to the sports profile until fairly recently. They were always Hollywood. It was always sort of highly brokered. And I think sports profiles became really brokered. And now we might be kind of like post-profile. I mean, how many of these are, how many?
Well, they had the one about Blake Griffin. I think it was SI. Not to keep picking on SI, but there was one with Blake Griffin, and they spent a paragraph on him punching the equipment manager. It was like this big, finally Blake Griffin's going to talk. And it's like, and then after he punched the equipment manager, it's like, wait, can we go back? Can we go back to the part where he broke his hand and ruined their season, punching the equipment manager?
Isn't that one of the great, sports profile genres? So-and-so is happy in exile.
Yeah.
Remember when we were kids and Tony Dorsett in the Broncos jersey was on the front of SI? Happy to be a Bronco. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
Happy in exile is like one of my favorite sports pieces. And it's never true. You think he doesn't want to be playing in Los Angeles? Come on.
There was that Eric Dickerson on the Indianapolis Colts. That was a staple of Sports Illustrated cover.
Yeah. New guy, new team. Happy to be here.
New team. Yeah. Yeah. I think we hit everything for the decade, right?
We did 10 years.
Is there any other thing we missed?
I don't think so. I'm sure there is.
They still can't figure out Countdown. It's the summer. Now the Countdown cast is in jeopardy again.
Was there a news item about that? I must have missed it.
Never read the piece about maybe it's the producers or the way that they're doing the show, and maybe we should rethink that versus just musical chairs with the hosts.
You're throwing out ideas here.
I don't know. Does it have to be musical chairs with hosts? And the TNT show still unassailable.
It just rolls along. I mean, that's been one of the craziest success stories in sports media. I mean, to me, it's that, and I don't pay as much attention, but it's that and the college football show on ESPN. Those things are just
people have decided
they like those shows. 18-wheeler going down the road, and and it's all about people, right? It's not about information. It's not, though those shows do occasionally have
College Game Day. The signs I feel like are a big part of it.
Yeah, the crowd.
The energy of the crowd, I think, really helps it.
But I think people at some level, those shows, they just decide they like the hosts, and they decide they think the hosts like each other. That's important. That the hosts like each other and that they have a relationship that a person sitting at home can understand.
Right.
And that is kind of the key to television at some level.
That's Kyle and I have that.
Yeah. Oh my God. The vibe in here it's almost overwhelming.
The press box, you can hear Brian Curtis talk about all this stuff and a lot more quality topics with David Shoemaker, your lifelong friend.
Oh.
Now you're united.
Speaking of vibes.
He left us. He's in New York, but you still get to talk to him twice a week about all kinds of stuff.
That's the best part of my week, minus the wife and kids stuff.
Kyle, do your 10-second press box plug.
I can't wait to hear what's going on with these these debates because I'm definitely not going to be able to watch them. But
Kyle said it makes me smarter. Was Kyle's senior yearbook quote about the press box?
Exactly.
Oh my God,
Makes me smarter.
That's the nicest thing anybody's ever said about us.
All right, Brian Curtis, thank you.
See you, Bill.
All right, my buddy Kevin Hench is here. Throughout the summer, we're going to be counting down our 125 favorite Patriots wins.
And getting 71 wrong, apparently.
That was the most despised podcast I've ever put out. People were just so angered, but a lot of people loved it too.
So many Super Bowls, you forget what year you won them. Hey man, it's hard.
It's hard.
The joy of 6.
When you get to 6 Super Bowl seasons, stuff starts blending in. Let's start with basketball because one of our least favorite players is in the news. I'm not talking about him as a person, just the player himself. It's been a frustrating run for Mr. Chris Paul. All this stuff in Houston today, or coming out of Houston today, that him and James Harden, they weren't talking the last couple months. He's demanded a trade, which he's already said wasn't true. The problem is, I looked at his contract again. I'd forgotten how horrific it was. $38 million next year.
Oh,
hold on, I'm not done. $41 million the year after, and then the player option for $44 million.
that sounds about right for a 5'10" off guard who can't defend anybody. That sounds good.
I should warn people who haven't heard Hench in a while. Hench is coming in hot. Be prepared.
CP3 is going to go into the hall as possibly the most overrated player of
No,
all
come
time.
on. No,
Oh my God.
Come on.
Oh my God. When he was favored on the Clippers against the Thunder and Rockets, those playoff flameouts, spectacular. By the way, how can you have a feud with James Harden? He's an MVP. You're like, at this point, a 7th man.
No, come on. He's like
He
a
blows.
4th man.
Do you remember that sequence when they lost to the depleted Warriors?
Yeah.
And McKinney got like 3 offensive rebounds. It was this crazy sequence where the Warriors kept missing and kept getting offensive rebounds. And every guy who got the offensive rebound was Chris Paul's responsibility.
Yeah.
And Chris Paul was playing zone in the middle of the lane, taking like a 10-second break from complaining about the officiating. The other thing he does so well. Yeah.
Wait, are you sure that wasn't Kyrie Irving in the Bucks series? Are you getting your small point cards mixed up?
Good riddance.
To put a
By the
bow.
way, Chris Paul, the second best part of the State Farm commercials. Oscar Nunez, who you can see on Mr. Iglesias premiering on
your
Netflix,
new Netflix show.
On Friday is the best part of those commercials.
that.
I know. It was a nice transition.
The Chris Paul thing. I don't remember a situation like this before with somebody who wasn't injured. Because you've had people who are like John Wall. Oh, he's injured. What are they going to do? Well, they can't do anything. You can't trade him. Here's Chris Paul, who is still one of the best, I don't know, 50 players in the league, maybe. He's 34, turns 35 next year.
If anyone in the world could name 50 players off the top of his head that he'd rather have, it would be you. You could rattle off.
Could.
If you went roster by roster, you'd get to 80
All right, maybe
before you'd want Chris Paul.
Yeah, maybe.
He's old, he's short, he doesn't defend, and he complains. Otherwise, I love the guy.
They came relatively close to beating the Warriors 2 years in a row. He was the second best player of those teams. Are we sure he's not becoming underrated because of the contract now?
I mean, obviously, we were texting when Durant went down.
Yeah.
And I was certain the Rockets were going to win. Like, they were going to win that game for sure and then close them out. And it was like, wow, you guys there's something wrong with that team. And I'm of the mind that a lot of it is Chris Paul. But the other thing, philosophically, by the way, I love it when D'Antoni gets coach of the month. Like, what does he do? Hey, James, dribble for 20 seconds and then do something. But I do think, and this gets to the Kyrie against the Bucks too, there's something so totally demoralizing about one guy occupying the ball for 15 to 20 seconds during every possession that your other guys just don't come through when you need them. It's impossible.
And it seems like that's when the dissension started, piecing together the different reports. They start off badly. Chris Paul gets hurt. It becomes the James Harden show, and he goes on that incredible run. And then Chris Paul comes back, like for January. And I think around then is when Chris Paul I think, relatively rightful attitude of, wait, we're not really going to play like this the rest of the season, right?
Well, it's
This
got to
isn't
be
just going to be our
hard.
whole offense, is it?
Try and imagine how old Chris Paul was when he became the ball dominant player on his Pee Wee team. Like, he was 5.
Yeah.
He's been the ball dominant player for 3
Right.
decades. And now it's like, hey, you and PJ Tucker are going to go spot up. Really? I've got a pretty good handle. Maybe I could take a little pressure off this guy. Maybe I could kick it to him.
And then the flip side is, and this was happening with Westbrook too, when Harden, Westbrook, the ball dominant guy, when they're not involved in the play, when it's like after 5 in a row, like, all right, I'll let you guys have one. And then they're just not doing anything 40 feet from the basket.
Randy Moss, when he's not the primary receiver.
He's just kind of running 8 yards and stopping. So it does give me faith as somebody who loves basketball and has loved it my whole life, as have you.
Yep.
Somebody who
love it.
You are a wonderful pickup basketball player, Kevin Hench, by the way. It does give me faith that this whole strategy.
The older I get, the better I was.
Everyone stand around and watch me. This offense is just going to work. Actually, doesn't work. I feel reinvigorated.
I mean, going back to the Bird Dominique showdowns, like, those were like, there were times where like, we can't stop this guy. We're going to lose this series. And then it's like, oh, Randy Whitman's going to miss when he has to take that one shot in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't touched the ball, as opposed to Bird, who kept everyone involved while he was dropping 40 on you.
Yeah, you go back and you look at the usage rates of the guys in the 80s compared to the guys now are from like 32% to 39% when you get to the Westbrook Hard thing. And Bird's like in the 20s. Like, Bird has years where he's like 22, 23, same with Magic, because they never would have wanted to be in a situation where they were taking 30 shots in a game. Like, that would have been a disaster. Durant, to his credit, that always doesn't want to play. I think he's one of the few modern guys that is like, no, that would be crazy if I took 31 shots tonight. So Kyrie,
what were you thinking when he came back and it was happening and it was like, oh, he's dropping threes and they're the unbeatable team again. It's going to happen.
We've had some distance with it now. So we saw him warm up. He was dunking. He came out, he had his first 3 and his second 3 and looked pretty agile. And it was like, oh, maybe the calf did heal. But then when they kept playing him, I felt like it was a red flag in the moment. I didn't really understand where we went from this guy couldn't play for a month to there's no minute restrictions today.
I know that's definitely
because we were watching the hockey, and with hockey, they never tell you who's injured till after the season. And then it's like, you knew Chara had a broken jaw because he had to wear a special mask for it. But then the series went and Bergeron's like, yeah, I pulled my groin 3 rounds ago. And there's just no,
Bergeron had a punctured lung in 2013.
And Pasta was like, yeah, my thumb's fucked up and I couldn't tell anyone.
My thumb was amputated in December. We're not allowed to say anything.
There's this article, and it was like 8 Bruins injuries. But with basketball, everything that's wrong with the guys. And with Durant, it was a calf. The ice pack seemed low, but it was like, all right, I guess it was a calf. And then all of a sudden he gets hurt again.
Well, the non-contact injury, when it happened, we were texting each other, that's that. And they were like, day to day? We're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, when you're glancing backwards at your leg, it's never a good sign. It's also affair for all guys after they turn like about 38 when you still play sports, it's going to be you.
I've been around several of them, and it hasn't been me yet. I'm trying to slow down to the point where it can't happen. There's a certain velocity where if you're slow enough.
Well, maybe the Rockets should sign you.
Spot up threes, baby. If you want me to happy to stand in the short corner.
3-point line to 3-point line.
Short corner.
So back to Chris Paul for a second. I just don't know what they do. And what makes the situation so unique is they were pretty close to making the finals 2 straight years here. And the Warriors are now out of the equation. We can talk about the Lakers in a second, what the hell they're going to do. But this still is like the nucleus of a team that has been really super successful. And I don't know what the move is for them. Like, they could trade for Andrew Wiggins, right? That's as bad of a contract as Chris Paul.
The move is 7th in the conference. The move is down.
So you just think this is done?
I think the window's closed. Yeah.
I think the window's closed?
On the Rockets, yeah. And D'Antoni. I don't think it works. I just don't think it works. I don't know. It's just too demoralizing.
Do you agree with Russillo and I talk on the pod about the difference in regular season basketball and playoff basketball? And how it's become more pronounced every year in these like kind of not gimmicks, but these things that work in January just are not going to work in May as well.
It's a weird thing, and really in most sports where, yes, everybody's trying in the regular season. I mean, it isn't like the Bob McAdoo days. Guys are actually not trying for most of the game. Like guys do try, but in both basketball and hockey for sure, which I think was part of the Pasternak-Marchand dilemma, was like when everybody takes it to that next level and there's no space, you have no time, because you're getting closed out. I mean, in the NHL playoffs, every time Marchand or Pasternak made a drop pass, it was intercepted by a back-checking forward who back-checks in the playoffs.
Who was going 100 miles an hour.
Who might have been dogging it in February. So it is interesting. And it didn't really work. It was Utah, right, that started playing behind Harden. But it was an interesting philosophy to actually get behind him. We grow up learning stay between your man and the basket, but the three-pointer has changed it to the point we're better off making him drive into that 2-point floater area.
I gotta say, I don't like a lot of this.
I don't either. I don't.
So that's what makes me happy. It's self-destructing.
I texted you probably in November. I don't want to watch a league where Brook Lopez is shooting 12 3-pointers in a game.
Well, and then in a game 6, when they actually need him to post up and he has mismatches, he's just conditioned to shoot 25-footers. This guy is one of like the 8 best low post guys we probably have right now. The same thing with how Toronto used Marc Gasol. Every once in a while, they'll be like, oh yeah, you can get a 3-foot jump hook when you want.
Nah, I'd rather stay out here. It's more fun.
I'm good.
It is like
not to criticize them, they would.
Because when you play pickup at the gym, you're like, hey, we got the big guy. And then you're like, oh, he's never going to go inside the 3-point line. Hey, buddy, could you go rebound? It'd be great if you go rebound.
Maybe like 2 rebounds. Yeah, so I don't know what happens with Houston, but I don't know what happens with the league. And the more I look at this stuff, I mean, I made this list of free agents today, just trying to figure out which ones I liked. And it's like 60 dudes that could be in a playoff rotation, and all these teams have cap space and there's a bunch of stars and I don't know who the point guards are for 19 teams. And you got guys like D'Angelo Russell, who I really like, who's only 23 next year, who made the All-Star team and, can finish games. And I don't know what team he's going to be on.
It's nuts.
I wouldn't mind if it was the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I wouldn't really mind either.
Come to Boston, D'Angelo. We don't care about your Snapchat.
Let me ask you this, because the ball dominance does seem to, like, when you think about what you need, you're like, well, who's going to be running the offense? And watching the Lakers suck last year, which was awesome. It was so fun. But I really am torn because I love LeBron. Like, a guy has just completely grown on me. I just think he's an amazing institution. I probably am going to end up letting go of my no one's ever been better than Jordan. No one's ever been better than Jordan. No one will ever be Jordan. But watching him try to coach guys up on the court, trying to make guys better during the course of play, like trying to get guys shots, he does want to have the ball and should, because he's such a great passer. So when I'm thinking about a point guard for that team, it's like, well, you want a point guard who is not a point guard, essentially, who can shoot.
It's like Drew Holiday.
It's somebody
that's the perfect guy.
Exactly. But I was thinking about, because LeBron obviously was hard to play as hard as he usually plays at times last year on that team, but there are so many miles on those tires. Like, it's crazy. And so as I see the AD thing go down, I'm like, are we going to see some slippage for LeBron? Like, is he a plus defender at this point in his career?
I think he could be in a playoff series, but it's funny. It's funny you bring this up, because I was actually looking at the minutes. I think the Laker fans, of course, it's like them against the world. They did the same thing with Kobe post-trial, where it's just like, that's our guy, fuck everybody else. I get it, because we did the same thing with the Patriots. I get it. I admire it. They are like, anybody who hates this trade is crazy. We have 2 of the best 10 players in the league. We should be the favorites. We'll figure this out. They're discounting that they have probably the worst front office in the league, and they still have 5 spots to fill. the thing that everybody's discounting is the minutes. And I don't think we can talk about it enough. I made this, so I looked up on Basketball Reference. Dirk has played the most minutes, but he's retiring. LeBron has played more minutes than anybody in the league regular season. He is the active leader over guys like Vince Carter, Joe Johnson, Pau Gasol, Jamal Crawford.
It's nuts.
Tony Parker, Carmelo, Iguodala. He's played 46,000 minutes.
They're super physical minutes. They're like, he's involved in everything. He doesn't take possessions off and stand, he's not a spot up shooter who just can walk around. And I know he sleeps in a hyperbaric chamber or something, but at some point I just feel like it's going to affect him. And
well, wait, I'm not done, because you go to the playoff minutes and he's the only guy ever who's played more than 8,000 minutes in the playoffs, and 9,000 and 10,000, because he's at 10,049. The next guy is Tony Parker at 7,758. Wade's at 66. This is just active. So he's played combined already over 56,000 minutes. And if you go all time, it's basically 5 guys ever. It's Karl Malone played almost 55,000 minutes and 8,000 minutes in the playoffs. If you're just talking about guys, if you add up the two, it's 60,000 minutes.
So maybe we saw the first sign last
Him getting
year
hurt.
that this is what's going to happen.
This is Kareem. It's Karl Malone. 60,000 minute guys.
Now, I will say this.
It's just not it's Kareem and Karl Malone. That's it.
As I teeter on the verge of relenting and calling LeBron the co-greatest player of all
I will
time.
never let you do that.
Okay, well,
we've been fantasy baseball partners for too long.
This is part of why I'm prepared to do it. LeBron and Dwayne Wade's kids are going to my daughter's school next year.
Oh, yeah,
at
that's
Sierra
right.
Canyon. So if I'm hanging in the bleachers with LeBron, I want to be on the record as going, Simmons is a dick. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You're obviously
You're gonna play
the
for 8
greatest
more
player.
years.
You're the greatest player of all time. You didn't have Pippen, whose kid also goes to my daughter's school. I didn't know, by the way, when Sophie got accepted to Sierra Canyon, that I was going to the Marvin Bagley, Kenyon Martin Jr., Bron Hoop Factory. I'm going to be going to high school basketball games next year. I'm delighted.
That team, the championship game was on last year on like the local station.
No, it was on TV.
And they were up by 20 and they had their bench in, and their bench was dunking and doing alley-oops. These were like 9th and 10th men.
Beautiful thing. And I'm quite confident after watching that terrible NCAA tournament this year that the Sierra Canyon Trailblazers team next year will be better than the college champion.
So with the minutes thing, I just think, does he have 2 more elite years in him? I'm not sure. Can he be a top 5 guy anymore for a regular season? Probably not. Could he be in the playoffs? Yes. Could it happen next year? Probably. 2 years. Now we're pushing it. To expect this to be more than 2 years, I think with the minutes, we root for Tom Brady. Tom Brady is doing stuff we never thought a QB would do. But they also changed the rules as he was playing. I feel like basketball has gotten harder, and being a football QB has gotten actually easier.
Well, also his pliability, like there are things that his position allow him to do in his regimen. He doesn't have to be explosive. Yeah. He doesn't have to be explosive at all. He never has to do an explosive thing. LeBron has to explode constantly over and over and over again, or you're hurting your team.
And bounce off dudes. And don't you think, Russillo and I were talking about this Sunday night, I think basketball is the hardest it's ever been to play. When I watch these guys in the finals, like you look at even by game 6, Durant and Clay go down. Kevon Looney, his arm is hanging off his body. Kawhi's on one leg for basically the last 2 rounds. We didn't talk about it because he was able to produce, but you saw some of the footage of him after they won the championship, and he's like limping, like not like a little limp, like a limp. These guys, I just think it's really hard to play basketball. It's not easy anymore. It is
kind of exciting though. And I know you've told me already where Kawhi is ending up. I don't know. I don't want you to get charged with tampering. I don't want you to get fined.
Well, he's going to the Clippers.
Yeah. So, which is great as Laker haters.
I mean, he might change his mind the day before, but I think everybody's expecting he's going to go to the Clippers.
What will be nice going into an NBA season is a team not being minus 1,000 to win the title. I mean, right. It's been so brutal for 5 years to be like well, I guess we need someone to get hurt or Draymond to get suspended for a game.
It's been 9 years.
Because
it's been since the first Miami year where we haven't had like a prohibitive favorite.
Right. So this could be actually interesting all year long.
Well, except for our Celtics.
Damn it.
Do you want to actually let's take a quick break and then I want to talk about Kyrie Irving.
Okay.
Okay. We're only going to do 5 minutes of this. It seems like Kyrie not only is gone, but there was an article in the Boston Globe today about how he has ghosted the Celtics, which is a term the young people use, Hench. When
I'm familiar.
Kyle, explain ghosting. You meet a girl at a bar.
Okay.
You get texting, and then
that's it.
She just pretends.
Oh, I'm doing the ghosting in this situation.
Whatever. Just explain the concept of ghosting for our older.
You're never
my dad who's listening.
Kyle, explain it from the perspective you've experienced it. Don't
what was the
pretend
worst
you
ghosting
ghosted
you've ever
the
had?
hot girl.
Well, nobody said she was hot, first of all. Second of all, it's just you're never heard from again. And you don't give any sort of inkling that you're not going to be heard from again.
What's it called? What's the double ghost? What's it called when neither entity gives a shit
a double ghost?
About ever seeing the other person again?
That's a win-win.
Yeah, of course. Like, it's like, oh my God, Kyrie's incommunicado. Danny, have you tried to get in touch with him? No. Do you care where he is? Just hopefully not in Boston.
Well, they had ghosting when we were in college. We just didn't call it ghosting.
We ghosted the whip, right, Kyle?
The ghosting
Ghost
the
ride
whip?
the whip? That's nice.
Ghost ride the whip.
Oh, nice. Yeah, the Kyrie thing, it's been headed this way for a while. It looks like he's in Brooklyn. Supposedly he's already recruiting, which I think is hilarious. And
what was his line? The greatest please leave post-game interview line where he goes, he's 5 for 22, and he goes, I should have shot 32 times.
Yeah.
Oh, that was your takeaway? You didn't shoot enough? Okay. Enjoy Madison Square Garden.
It was funny sharing the last Kyrie season with you because he offended, I think, every rule you have in basketball at some point. There was that stretch in the Bucks game when they just got offensive rebounds over and over again
Standing
for a minute
around
straight.
doing his Chris Paul impression.
And he was just kind of in the paint,
just watching
there.
Horford, please get a rebound and
you
give me the ball.
Taped it. You're just sending me the clip. You're like, what's he doing? Just explain to me what he's doing in this play.
Hey guys, unless one of you gets a fucking rebound, how am I going to dribble for 20 seconds and then take a bad shot? I need one of you guys to get a defensive rebound so I can do the fun part of the game. And then say I should have taken more shots.
Good luck, Brooklyn.
Good luck.
But no, seriously, good luck.
I'm an omnivore, and I don't want to get any hate mail to your site, but I do think red meat is important for your health. And B12, vitamin B12.
Oh, this is great. This will definitely get more emails than anything you've said.
I think Kyrie's fragile. I think he has knee problems, and I don't think he is a physically sound player that I would want to invest a lot of money or a lot of possessions in. I just don't think, I think he's an incredibly skilled shooter and dribbler. And I think his net effect, no pun intended, on the outcome of the game is overstated.
And both of us really enjoyed watching him for stretches.
There'd be times where he would break guys' ankles and you were texting like, oh my God, I love him. And obviously after game 1 of the Bucks series, I was like, oh no, we're going to do it.
Right.
They've just been coasting on purpose.
Yeah.
It's the second Tomjanovich Rockets team. We're going to do it.
It's the reverse of when the Red Sox signed J.D. Drew in 2007, and every Dodger fan we knew was emailing us and making fun of us. We're like, good luck, guys. Seriously, good. And we're like, but wait, his OBP is like, his OPS is over 900. The guy's
line drive, grand slam off Fausto Carmona.
Yeah, we bitched about it for 6 months.
Earned his money with
he
one
hit the
swing.
$14 million grand slam. But it was the same thing where we get this guy, and I feel like it's going to be that way for the Nets, where the Nets fans get Kyrie, they're going to be like, this is great. And the Boston fans are just going, good luck.
Well, I mean, my theory is just like this. If Kyrie Irving's your best player, you're not going to win anything. Obviously, if he's your number 2, as he was when he won something, that's pretty good.
But he wanted to be the guy.
But that was so perfect, because if he was the guy, he would have known that he was in a great situation. But he's not the guy, and he was right where he belonged. And so then he went and proved to the world, I'm not the guy, and now I'm going to go prove that somewhere else.
Flip side is what we saw from Kawhi Leonard. I'm still like, I'm still coming to grips with the Game 7 Philly game when nobody else on his team could score and he had to take 39 shots and he was definitely not 100% and then ends up obviously making the game winner. But just the way he carried them in that game, I really want to watch that game again. I really feel like they probably should have lost that game and he just wouldn't let them lose.
There are so many moments in the playoffs. I mean, that guy, he's so quiet and like weird, but that guy's legend. Like, because that's a situation when you are the guy, right? Then those other guys become better players because they're like, oh, we got the guy. We got the killers right there. The killer's there. So, Van Vliet can bank in his 3-pointers or, and Siakam doesn't have to be the guy. And Kawhi, he was so measured. I loved the stories that we would hear about Nick Nurse saying, we got to go in and get a split in Oakland. And he was like, fuck that.
Right.
We're going to win both those games. So, oh, okay. And then walking out of game 4 in Oakland, there was like, he wasn't smiling or high-fiving anybody. He was like, this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. I thought we were going to come into Oakland and win both these games.
Yeah, he's like, I beat LeBron in NBA Finals.
Yeah.
I guarded him the whole time and my team won. We're good.
It was very like sad to look out at, the millions of people, half of whom holding signs that said stay. You're like, just enjoy, just be in the moment. Don't think.
They're good though. Remember when we won in 2004 with the Red Sox, Pedro left that winter. And can you imagine how bitter we would have been
without
if he had left and we hadn't won the title, but we had won. And it was like wishing everybody, even Johnny Damon left. Some fans were mad about the Johnny Damon thing. I was just
because
like,
he went to the Yankees, but
I remember us talking about when we won in 2004, like, just if we can win this one time, I'll forgive anything anything in the future that will ever happen. Whatever sin you want to give us, like, I know. Tell me what we need to do. And that sin turned out to be Kurt Schilling.
Well, but
the next 15 years of Kurt Schilling.
Then you find yourself doing it in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. You're like, okay, if you can just also give me this. Okay, yes, if you just give me 3 straight champions. Listen, I don't ask for much, but if we get another Duck Boat parade.
Nobody's won 3 straight ever.
No one's ever done it. And then nothing. And then I won't ask for anything. Just one more Duck Boat parade for Chara and the Broken Jaw and Bergeron, and that's it. Speaking of which, I know, I don't really know. The NHL, that was an officiating apocalypse all playoffs long. Like literally all playoffs long. You're learning as you watch. No, the puck can totally go off the netting and then come back into play and they can whack it into the net and that goal stands. You're like, no, the puck's out of play. Yeah, there's no mechanism. Hey, that hand pass in overtime at the Sharks. Oh, you can't review it. Hey, Pavelski, that wasn't really a penalty. Yeah, there's nothing we can do. And then obviously in Game 5, after Berube chastises the officials and they just decide we're swallowing our whistles. We're just not going to call anything. So Sundqvist headhunts Krug, no call. Sundqvist holds Krug, no call. Krejci has to make a save in the goal. Barbashev headhunts Johansson so bad he gets suspended. What was the call in the game? Major? Minor? Nope, nothing. And then Achari gets the slew foot from Tyler Bozak that leads to the deciding goal of Game 5, costs us the Stanley Cup. And I want to ask Kelly Sutherland, okay, Don Denkinger.
He's been waiting to do this for 2 weeks.
We know there's a chapter in the corrections called The More He Thought About It, the Angrier He Got. That's me with this non-call on Noel Achari, so on Bozak. So we know what happened when Don Denkinger cost the Cardinals the World Series. He thought George Orta's foot beat Todd Worrell's foot to the bag. Like it's a bang-bang play, and his brain perceived it incorrectly. What the fuck was Kelly Sutherland's explanation for how Noel Achari shot backwards and hit his own head on the ice? What happened? You're standing there. You're in the frame. You saw the entire play. What did your brain say happened? And it's like, what happened is you were choking on your fucking whistle at a critical moment, the final officiating apocalypse of a disastrous NHL playoff season.
You missed the part where the guy started kind of looking around and getting ready to skate to the box.
Yeah, I know. It's unbelievable. And then the NHL, like, I don't know why the Vegas Knights get an apology, which they deserved. They completely deserved an apology. Hey, sorry we cost you your whole season. You were up 3-0 in midway through the third period against the Sharks. We blew it. And then, like, The Bruins get nothing. They're like, hey man, judgment call.
My only, not to defend him, but I think he was so confused because it was actually 2 penalties. He didn't know which one to. He didn't know whether to call the trip,
both legs.
Yeah, so
good
he
chance
just
that was a
panicked.
penalty. Good chance that was a penalty.
Yeah, that was rough. I actually think I thought the Blues played better.
I thought the
Game
Blues
7
were more consistent. I mean, obviously we blew them out in a couple games.
I know, but once the Blues were up 1-0, it just felt like it was impossible to come
hockey,
back.
Right? You dominate 16 minutes. You're gonna, if you don't score,
I thought
you're
they
gonna
were really
give up a
good defensively. Their problem was when they had to play from
their
behind.
blue line was unbelievable. No, the Blues deserved it, but Kelly Sutherland deserves eternal damnation.
The thing that hurt for us was John Hamm finally getting a win. Over Boston.
Very personal.
We'd taken him in a couple World Series.
He's calling out Boston in the victory parade. Like he's
yeah.
Like, we beat those guys in their place.
He lost.
It turns out we're hateable.
We made fun of him because he lost Affleck at the end of the town. He lost 2 World Series. He lost Super Bowl 36.
At least
I really felt like we had Ham's number.
At least his Rams had already ghosted him for this year's Super Bowl. He had already lost the team entirely.
Wow. Shots at him. Yeah.
He's having a rough life.
Fucking
lifting the
It
cup.
is funny. Like we're running out of teams that have not won the title, and the fans, it's like the happiest moment of their life, basically. We just had the Blues. We just had Toronto.
Which
and
is
then you have
nuts.
the Patriots winning their 6th in like the most boring Super Bowl ever. But the last 2 were fun. And then Gary Woodland ruining the Brooks Koepka trifecta.
Koepka, the number, like Koepka's going to be like the Warriors, the way his betting number is going to start going down because you're like, yeah, he's going to be in contention on Sunday.
So I bet on him 9-1 before the Open, and it was like the most fun, even though I ended up losing tragically. It was so much fun to just have a guy like that who, even when he wasn't playing well, I still felt like I was in it. And I think he's the guy now. I'm trying to think.
Oh, for sure.
I'm not even saying for golf. I'm saying like he might be the guy right now. I'm talking about across the sports because Brady's going to be 42. In basketball, I don't know who the guy is. In baseball, like whatever. In hockey, there's no guy. Like Koepka might actually be the guy. There's no boxing guy. The tennis guys are all getting old.
Like a soundbite. I mean, I don't like.
No, but just the guy you assume is going to be in the mix when something important is happening. Like he's kind of becoming the
dominant
guy.
figure in his sport. The Gretzky.
It's kind of like you have to get through this guy to get to where you want to go.
No, when they threw that stat up, I couldn't believe it. First of all, but he became the second player ever to win 2 majors in back-to-back years. It was a crazy stat.
Did you see his last 6 majors?
Jack Nicklaus never did it. And I was like, wow.
I think he was like 139-1, 2-1-2 in his last 6 majors.
I can't be talking about golf when my show is premiering on Friday.
What do you mean?
It's golf, man. Come on.
What are you talking about? Brooks Koepka.
I do watch. I do find myself Sunday getting sucked in to these tournaments.
I thought you usually appreciate greatness.
Well, I do. No, well, what was interesting about, I mean, obviously we were going crazy during Tigers. That was bananas.
Well, that was like the most fun thing that happened this year. And we won a Super Bowl.
And then, so of course, because the betting on Tiger is always so irrational, right?
Yeah.
So then he was the favorite in the PGA, the betting favorite. And Koepka was below him kind of considerably, like almost $200 per 100 below him. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, Koepka's a much better bet than Tiger. He's a much better golfer than Tiger Woods.
Well, Tiger's, he gets the public money now. A little like when like the Lakers are plus 250 to win the title right now.
That is bonkers.
Nobody else is better than like plus 550. They have LeBron, Davis, Kuzma, and nobody else.
Well, I almost went back however many months it would have taken because I know when the odds came out, I sent you a text that I was like, Toronto plus 1,200 is the best number on this list you just sent me.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, and then I pat myself on the back and go, hey, pussy, why don't you actually put $300 on your great idea?
The problem with Toronto, though, is they always played the Celtics well. And I think I assumed you were tainted by that. Would have been my guess, because you get tainted by the Boston teams.
Well, what I was a little tainted by was this theory, and you've probably heard it, you might have invented it, that Toronto is an amazing town.
Yeah.
So their regular seasons are always disproportionate to their actual talent because in the regular season, every team that blows into Toronto goes
it's
out
like South
all
Beach.
night
Yeah.
and then loses a regular season game and could give a shit. But come playoffs, teams obey curfew and the Raptors get swept. I don't think you would want to be walking out after curfew past Kawhi. If he was at the hotel door, yeah, you're going to be going back to bed.
We're going to talk about your show in 1 second.
All right. Fire it up.
I just want to go through our League of Dorks team.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm sorry to do this to you, America, but I think every year you have to come on during the summer after we've just been let down and assaulted by our own
I'm
team.
sitting right.
By this team of randomly, these guys that have no random connection. We bought them at auctions. I thought you'd give 1-sentence reviews of some of these guys. Let's start with Jose Ramirez, who we traded 2 first-round picks for.
Jose Ramirez.
We traded 2 first-round minor league picks for him.
Oh, my God. Jose Ramirez, MVP candidate.
Last year.
Just last year.
year.
Definite top 3 MVP candidate.
He was a top 5 player in baseball.
Power, speed and power. I mean, a perfect roto player. Lots of power, lots of steals. He becomes a splint. He's a splinter. He's on our team.
Where our team's the frozen
splinters. Suddenly, he can't hit fucking 200. Like, he has gone above and below the Mendoza line 6 times already this season. And every time he goes 2 for 4, I'm like, he's turning it around. And then I'll see this. I always do this. I go, oh, okay. Indians won 13-4. I'm going to go to this box score because I bet 3 bombs for Ramirez. Oh, 2 bombs for Carlos Santana, 0 for 5 for Jose Ramirez.
Yeah.
Great. So that he's a disappointing piece of shit.
He's hitting 204. 204, 298 on base, 4 homers.
298 on base.
4 homers. Last year he had 39 homers and 105 RBI.
Beautiful.
So thanks to him.
So we destroyed him.
So we
It's another notch on our belt.
We spent, how much did we spend on Daniel Palka? We spent $8 on Daniel Palka, who had 27 homers last year. He started out the season 1 for 35 with 15 strikeouts. He's hitting 0.29. They sent him down. We haven't seen him since. He's one of our outfielders.
The saddest exchanges between us are when you send me links to like the Birmingham Barons, fucking the Charlotte minor league affiliate.
Yeah, like Palka
started to hit. He started to hit.
3 homers this week. Palka lit up some 40-year-old at AAA.
No, the other brutal thing, right? So it was a straight binary choice because we were bidding on Jose Abreu.
Yeah.
And we basically we said, let's get Gurriel and Tyler White. Yuli Gurriel and Tyler White instead of Abreu. You're going to get like 350 more plate
we have
appearances
2 chances
for those 2 guys.
Yeah.
So as it turns out, Yuli and Tyler White and Tony Kemp, we have 3 Astros. We have a third of the nightly lineup of the best team in the American League.
And
they do fucking garbage every night. I mean, Tyler White can't reach the warning track.
So our friend Mendelson is the commissioner of our league. He sent us this information. Tyler White, 31 at-bats with runners in scoring position, 16 Ks, 3 grounded and double plays, 1 extra base hit. 61% of the time he's either K'd or hit a double play. So he's on our team.
And he was projected to have 22 home runs, as was Palka.
He had a great year last year. So
he had a great year.
Let's talk about our another one of our stars, Aaron Judge, who has so much muscle, his obliques just come flying off his body.
He's in constant risk of permanent injury when
he just has you get Aaron Judge, you get the red flag next to his name.
Aaron Judge had the great, because he also got hurt for us last year. He cost us.
Should have been a red flag.
Cost us dearly last year.
But,
yeah. Aaron Judge, as we hopefully go to the website, like, hey, any news on Aaron Judge? And it was the first time either of us had heard this phrase. He's taking soft, dry swings.
Right.
There can't be any moisture in his swings yet because he's so delicate, but he's taking soft, dry swings. That sounds like he's going to play this weekend. Soft, dry swings.
Well, there's 3 weeks where they said he couldn't swing. So it's like, well, what's he doing? What is he, just in a hot tub?
Swingers.
Yeah, his next week he's hoping to swing. Another one who killed us, Malik Smith, we kept for $16. last year, really good year for Malik. Hit 275, 39 steals, only 14 caught stealing, 9 homers. Like, really seemed like his career was on its way up. No. He was hitting like 160, and they sent him down.
Welcome to Tacoma.
Goes to Tacoma. Then we're checking the Tacoma, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, Malik might have found his swing again. Brought him back up. He immediately sucked again, but now he's
kind of turning it around.
Of life.
He's,
So
I've sent
kudos to you, Malik.
I've sent you some Malik's 3 exclamation point text.
Andrew Benintendi, we've had his entire career since we drafted him. I feel like we've actually ruined his career arc because this was somebody who could have been a 40-40 guy, and really, if we hadn't passed through his life.
It just turns out that he's Todd Benzinger. Like, he just doesn't have that much speed or power. Like, he just doesn't. I mean, he's a nice player and he's excellent defensively.
He's excellent defensively.
And
we won a World Series with him.
That catch off Bregman and the final out. He's an awesome defender. But he's fine. He's a fine player. But
my guess is that he's going to add power when he hits his late 20s after when he's not on our team anymore. So we have that. I should mention we had Daniel Robertson on Tampa. Every year, these other guys on our in fantasy, you get like these random dudes on Tampa or whatever team, and it's like, oh my God, they're having the year of their life. Tampa's an entire team of those guys, and somehow we have the one guy who had 200, Daniel Robertson. Well, so kudos to him.
When we were sitting right here doing the draft, because when you get down to the Daniel Robertson portion of the draft, we're scurrying, looking at computers, and we have kids. We don't have, we don't know all these guys' stats from last year, and we're both like 373 OPP. This guy's awesome. He's got a little. This guy's a sleeper. Yeah. And then it's like, the reason you hadn't heard of him, he's fucking terrible. Enjoy him.
Well, hopefully he'll turn it around. We had Dylan Betances for $10, who his new update 3 hours ago
just shut down.
Yankees Dylan Betances yet to resume throwing. He's still experiencing symptoms of his low-grade lat strain. The best thing about having a fantasy baseball team is you just learn all these injury terms. Low-grade lat strain. Like if I was like, "What's going on, Hench?"
He's working
I have a low-grade lat strain
to soft, dry throws off flat ground.
So we call him McHugh, who was one of like our best keepers. It was like $8.
He was projected to go 15-6 with 187 Ks.
He has a 6.04 ERA and has had elbow trouble and might get shut down for the season. So kudos to that experience.
Worse than Betances. I mean, literally worse for us than a guy who didn't play at all.
There's more, but it just hasn't been fun, and I'm starting to wonder if it's us, not the fake fantasy fairy tale baseball team we put together.
No, because as you and I pathetically keep saying to each other, I like our team.
Right.
I like our 8th place.
I like
team.
these guys. What's wrong?
But speaking of all these Yankee injuries, as they disappear over the horizon away from the Red Sox, who've been healthy, except for
maybe that's our problem, because in the early days we would refuse to take Yankees. And then we won the World Series, and we softened that policy because it was like, well, now we have the upper hand. And we do. We've won 4 World Series. They've won 1 this century. So now we have all these Yankees, and we really haven't won since.
It's crazy, though, the Yankees have had 20 straight games with a home run, and they're now adding Judge, Stanton, and Encarnacion. Like, think about that.
Yeah,
like,
they got Encarnacion out of nowhere.
Just for nothing.
They gave up like their 39th prospect for that. Kind of would have liked him on the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Maybe a closer.
No. Well, Will Smith from the Giants is the rumor.
Oh, really?
That'd be good, yeah.
What would we give up for him? You don't want to watch our bullpen blow more saves?
The nightly, hey, it's your turn to pitch in a high leverage situation.
Well, I can't believe we blew another save with random reliever guy. All right, talk about your show really quick.
So it's called Mr. Iglesias. It premieres Friday
on Netflix,
June 21st on Netflix. I'm really proud of it. Gabriel Iglesias, better known as Fluffy, is the star. Just an incredible human being to work with. And, my thing, what I do for a living is I take really talented people and I try to get their horsepower to the wheels. And so this is a guy that puts 20,000 people in Staples Center and sells out in Australia and Saudi Arabia and Norway. And he's just like one of the biggest stand-ups of all time. And so But he does it with this incredible humanity. Like he's a really good guy, not like a Boston dick like us. He's a sweetheart, and I'm like, I'm like, the humanity in this guy is the key to the character. And so he plays a teacher who's fighting for the at-risk kids. And even though it wasn't top of mind when I was doing it, as I was editing it, I was like, this really is a bit of an homage to Welcome Back, Kotter. Like it is, and it's funny that Gabe's name is Gabe, and Gabe Kaplan was Gabe Kaplan. But it has that feeling of the sweat hogs and the cool teacher and a funny teacher. And so
I'm
he's
sure
amazing.
many of the sweat hogs were available for cameos. You should have thought about it
the next year. And then Sherry Shepard plays his principal, his boss. She's amazing. Oscar Nunez from The Office and the State Farm commercials, where he's much better than Chris Paul, much like 9 of the Rockets were in the playoffs. He's amazing, and the Jacob Vargas is incredible as his best friend. The cast is amazing. The kids are amazing, and everyone's nice. And like, I'm just at a point in my life where I want to walk into work and like everybody I see. Not like this nephew of yours over here.
I was going to say, not like our fantasy baseball team.
Yeah, I want it to be the opposite of looking at our fantasy baseball team.
We're just red flags and disaster.
Gabe shares the same worldview, which is like no assholes. So wherever you walk on our show, whether you're in the writer's room or the bullpen or the sound stage, anyone you see is like, I like that person, every department, and so it was a dream. And so there's 10 episodes on Netflix starting Friday, and I'm very hopeful and confident that there will be more. Obviously, I've been spoiled by Last Man Standing, which enters season 8 on Fox.
Season 8.
And it is a little funny in my two worlds colliding that Friday, 21 de junio, Friday, June 21st, Mr. Iglesias premieres on Netflix and Toy Story 4 comes out at the megaplexes. So, but if you have a choice, lots of people are going to go see Toy Story 4. Watch my show.
I think this Netflix thing is catching on.
You think? Well, they are promoting it, so I appreciate that too.
How old are your kids now?
Huh?
How old are your kids now?
5 and 11. And we just did.
Does the 11-year-old like Adam Sandler?
No, he hasn't.
My kids love Adam Sandler, and we watched the new Adam Sandler movie, Murder Mystery,
and they were
last
into it?
weekend. They just like all of his movies. They don't really care what the plot is. They just trust him completely. He's their favorite actor.
She did I did take her to the Kids' Choice Awards one year, and he had done Hotel Transylvania or something. He was a voice, and he presented, and she did like him. The fun thing that just happened to me, which you've probably already gone through, we'd never been to Hawaii.
Yeah.
So we went on vacation to Kauai, the most remote, beautiful island that has to be experienced by helicopter. And I'm not great with heights. One of my many things in my closet full of anxieties.
Many foibles.
And then
you have a lot of
so
picadillos.
I'm like, my thing is like, look, I'm not going to let my fears limit the enjoyment of my girls. My kids are going to have a big full life, even though I'm chicken shit about everything. So, except Kelly Sutherland, who I'll kick his ass if I see him in a bar. So he's a hockey ref. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to overcome my fears. I'm going to overcome, and I have 2 fears. One fear is heights. And the second fear is that it's $300 per person for 45 minutes in the helicopter.
Yeah.
So it's $1,200 for 45 minutes. That's much more expensive than Orchids of Asia. Anything else you could be doing at those rates. But so I'm like, I'm going to overcome.
Is that a Bob Kraft joke?
Mr. Kraft, I'm there for you. I'm there for you, brother. You relax. You've earned it. So we're getting in this helicopter, and I'm white knuckling it, but I'm doing it for my daughters. So I'm going to drop the $1,200, and I'm going to drop my fear of heights for my children. This is dad heroism.
Yeah.
We're halfway into the ride between the million-year-old volcanoes. They drop down into the corridor. Yeah. These were formed 1 million years ago with lava. It's the most spectacular experience of your life. I look over, Sophie's on her phone. Sophie's just on her phone. I'm going to throw you out of this fucking helicopter. Like, what is going on? What? Look, honey. And that's when I realized it's like, oh, there's nothing as good as that phone. There would never be anything as powerful.
Not even dropping into a volcano.
As the dopamine drip of that phone. Like, that is just like, she's like, yeah, we've been up here for 15 minutes. I think I get it.
Nature. It's been around a million years.
The water's
I'm
out
good.
there. The mountains are in here. Got it.
Volcano,
Okay.
so lava comes out. Good. I'm good.
Lila just said something
good.
to me on Snapchat.
Just got to do Instagram DM. Yeah, I identify with that story. Just wait till they get a little older.
Now, your Zoe is a
Zoe's 14.
sports stud, right? I mean,
she's okay.
She's for real. And like, I do feel, obviously I've felt your pain many sporting events when I've been like, can you believe what just happened? And you're like, well, I could believe it if I wasn't at a girls' soccer game.
Yeah.
And then I always got like, Sophie she's not into sports. And I have,
You've saved so much time.
but she's had every opportunity. The soccer goals were set up in the yard. I've got a full court basketball court at my house. Like, you could be whatever you want to be, but she doesn't want to be a jock. And so then I hear your stories and I'm like, oh, thank God. Because at first I was brokenhearted about it. I was like, oh, I thought you were going to be my shortstop. We're going to do this together. Get some great Santini, fun father-daughter time. And it's like a lot of time.
It's like Memorial Day weekend. Just going to... The thing is, it is fun to root for your kids, so it's not all bad. But the travel baseball is the one. That's the one where your kid it's a 2.5 hour game, and your kid could potentially bat like 2 or 3 times and have one ball hit to them at third base, and that's 2.5 hours of your life.
Oof.
They're just not involved.
I remember when you sent me game footage of the lucky save the other team's goalie made on a penalty.
Oh, and my daughter? Yeah, she's not.
You're like, can you believe this? Well, Bill, you're 900 yards away, and it's your phone, so I can't see.
Patriots prediction before we go?
It's so funny because even though I think you can attest, knowing me as long as you have, that these crazy duck boat parades have cured a lot of my knee-jerk pessimism and negativity.
I would beg to differ.
Okay. But. Chris Paul might beg to differ too. Kelly Sutherland. But I do think like when Gronk, you know how like when coaches like build dynasties and then Phil Jackson goes, I think I'm done. Like there's these moments where you see major, and I know you and I feel the same way about Gronk, like that guy is such a game changer. And we watched him when he wasn't on the field. We watched them try to move the ball when he wasn't on the field. But so I felt like between the 42 years old at the QB and the kind of only reliable weapon, I just felt like I know Vegas is still saying 11 and a half.
They were minus 550 to win the AFC East last weekend.
And I was like, I know I don't really believe in any of those QBs in our division yet, but I was like, I do think this might be the 9 and 7. I kind of feel it. Like
I love this. This is great.
Trey
this is
Flowers,
the best thing you've done all year.
Trey Flowers, like
this is
it's
great.
Just so many pieces have just kind of been pulled away. So
Kyle, to me, this means the Patriots season has officially begun. Hench has talked himself into a dangerous outcome.
9 and 7.
Which means we're close. We're close to where we need to be. I was thinking about it. What's today's date? It's like June
18th.
So
18. Let me see. I can figure it out because Friday's June 21st, the premiere of Mr. Iglesias.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Netflix,
That's right.
1918.
Good point. My brain was working that way.
Okay.
Gronk retires after winning the Super Bowl. You're on the Super Bowl high, all that stuff, and good for him. He's getting it out. But now it's like mid-June. The combo of I don't know. I can't name any of our tight ends. I've seen the depth chart, and it's like none of those guys are going to catch more than
5 names are in every story.
Like, Izzo, is that guy related to Larry Izzo?
Is it Larry Izzo?
So it's like none of those guys are going to get to 40 catches, much less 80. And then, so I thought about that, and then just like, I just really loved Gronk. He was one of my 5 favorite athletes ever. It was like I came to grips with the fact that there's no football with Gronk anymore. And I don't know why it took this long, but it really genuinely made me sad.
But
I love that guy.
It's a perfect career.
It really was.
A perfect
I'm
career.
so glad he got out. I'm going to miss him.
And then when you hear, obviously, the worst thing is to love a guy as much as we love Gronk, and then you just hear all the stories like, bad guy. And then every story is like,
it was like the opposite.
He'll stay late for the kid. The kid's in surgery. He was promised he was going to meet a Patriot. And so he's going to stay late. Like every story is Gronk's at his teammates event. Gronk's going to be there. Gronk's going to, take a picture with every kid. And so the fact that he's a great guy, that is like, okay, you survived. You're not gonna have.
He took some of the worst hits of any Patriot and a couple of the worst cheap shots that I can remember of any Patriot. If Jack Tatum was a 10 out of 10, Gronk took a couple like 8.5ers.
Every time they went low for the last 7 years, we were this breathless.
TJ Ward started it. Like,
okay,
he created
but
the
you're
blueprint.
still confident. You're laughing at my 9 and 7 while lamenting our most unguardable player.
I like the draft. I think Belichick. He's going to have to be 70.
The game can't pass him by.
How old is Trump right now? 74?
Oh, don't bum everybody out, man.
74. He's going to have to get to whatever age Trump is right now before I'd start to lose confidence. I just feel like he's got 5 years left of like high level, I'm smarter than everybody else.
What's your theory for why his coaching tree sucks, basically? I mean, like, that they never do anything.
I don't have a theory for it. It doesn't make sense. You would have thought there would be like two or three good ones.
My theory is...
So you have a theory.
Yeah, well, because it's like, Romeo Crennel, Josh McDaniels, Patricia, Bill O'Brien, like they all go and Vrabel, like they're fine. Sometimes they're an embarrassment and they come limping back to Foxborough. But I was like, why are none of these guys the heir apparent? And I do think, going back to reading this article about his economics background, and this is something you could not transfer to a disciple. You could not teach an assistant this thing. Belichick watches practice and goes, that guy's a $6 million player. He's not an $8 million player. And he just, like, his ability to be right on guys on Thursday, like he's like, the day they're worth less, like, because we've been through it, the names we could go, Laura Malloy, Ty Law, David Givens.
Yeah, he always knows.
Willie McGinnis. It's just like
Seymour,
Deion Branch. I mean, it's just on and on and on and on. And I just think he has a supercomputer that has that economic mind where he goes, that guy's still a very good player, but not at his price tag.
I'm also convinced he found the secret sauce of just finding smart guys who could adjust on the fly to different situations. So you get like
Troy Brown, Nickelback.
Yeah, like that. I mean, the defining play of that last Super Bowl, which everybody hated, but we couldn't move the ball on the Rams. And then he goes with that jumbo lineup. And you just have to have guys who are at least smart enough to say, oh, I know I'm a fullback, but they're going to spread me wide on these plays, and I'm going to know what to do because I'm smart.
And their best cover corner is going to guard me, and I'm 280 pounds and can't run.
Yeah, it's like the IQ, it always seems like the other team is the one that's doing the dumbest thing, or that made the one play, the one regretful thing, or this guy shouldn't have been there, or they dropped this, or D Ford's offsides. And the Pats, like, just over and over again, aren't the ones doing that. Now, it's happened over the past, but we should have lost to the Chiefs. I've thought about this game a lot. D Ford, if he's just back 18 inches, it's the same play. He didn't affect the play. Brady just throws a pick. We lose. The game's over. And that's it. So there's some luck, but also, like, you're getting emotional.
Well, I mean, because, like, it's funny. Prior to Kelly Sutherland's debacle that cost the Bruins the Stanley Cup, I think the worst officiating costing us a championship was the Giants holding every guy on the Patriots defensive line.
We still text back and forth on that.
So it's like 9 holds on one play. None of them are called.
It actually was
helmet catch.
It was different stages of holds on the same play. There was the first wave of holds, and then when Eli breaks free, there was a whole new wave of holds.
So that game, I always, if D Ford gave us +1, then.
Yeah, those cancel out. I agree with that.
I think we got the right number of Super Bowl championships.
I agree with that. I'll never get over the 06 game. I don't know what the flip one of that is against the Colts.
21-3, too many men in the huddle.
Just like that's the one out of all of them. There's just like, how do we lose?
We're going to win a Super Bowl with Rashay Caldwell and Jabbar Gaff.
It was going to be so great. The flip one on that one was probably the Malcolm Butler Super Bowl, though, right? That made up for that one.
That's for sure.
This is where people listening to this who don't love the Pats are now.
They're like, they fucking somehow snuck in a Patriots top 25 games.
You know who enjoyed it? Kyle.
I loved it.
The KC one, I don't know where that ranks, but if we did that list again, it's in like the top 8.
Oh my God.
Plus, that's now the Orchard Spa game. Kraft Daily doubled it. Starts the day after the Orchard Spa, ends with the
Orchids of Asia. If you're going to do a promo for a reputable company, get the name right.
Orchids of Asia. Starts out there, ends with the AFC title.
What a day!
Bob Kraft.
It's like a Make-A-Wish Foundation for billionaires. I want to start my day at Orchids of Asia and end with an AFC championship.
I said on a pod last month, very comparable to Arya losing her virginity and then killing the lead White Walker all in one day. That and Bob Kraft. I don't know who had a better day.
Oh my God. Perfect day.
All right, Kevin Hedge, good luck with your Netflix show.
Thank you very much.
It's going to pop on Friday, so check it out. Thanks to DAZN. Don't forget to go to DAZN.com. Thanks to Brian Curtis. Don't forget to listen to The Press Box. An awesome podcast. Thanks to Kevin Hench. Don't forget about his new Netflix show. Don't forget. NBA Draft. Come to us. Come to the NBA Draft Guide. Come to theringer.com. Go to @Ringer during the draft for our live watch along show. I really hope the Celtics haven't completely fallen apart. Pray for me. See you on Thursday night.